Hello, good morning. This is Rick Pina, and I bring you today's word for July 2nd, 2015. Before I get started, I just need to let you know that although it's Thursday and I normally do messages all the way to Friday, it is the 4th of July weekend. I know a lot of people are already taking off for the weekend, so I'm not going to share a message tomorrow. This will be the last message before the 4th of July weekend. So from Isabel and I, we just, right up front, I just want to say we hope that you have a great weekend. We hope that you enjoy yourself, that you surround yourself with great people, and you celebrate the independence of this great nation. All right, so let's get into the word. So today, July 2nd, 2015, we're still in a series entitled Grace-Based Success, where we have been learning how to win in life, how to do it God's way, by his unearned and amazing grace. We've been studying the life of the Apostle Peter. Our study has brought us to Matthew chapter 10. For the last few days, we've looked at a passage in Matthew 10, really around verses 1 through 10. And yesterday, we looked at, in this passage, we focused on keeping our emphasis on God. And so today, I want to go back to the same passage and continue to flow in the same vein, basically, with a message entitled Learning to Rely on God, right? So our reliance, our dependence needs to be on God, where we're living a life that is grace-based and not performance-based. So let's go back to what Jesus said. Jesus sent the 12 men out with these instructions. Don't go to non-Jewish people. Don't go into any of the towns where the Samaritans live. Go to the people of Israel. They are like sheep who are lost. When you go, tell them this: God's kingdom is now very near. Now, he said this: heal the sick. Bring the dead back to life. Heal people who have leprosy. Force demons out of people. I give you these powers freely, so help others freely. Don't carry any money with you, gold or silver or copper. Don't carry a bag. Take only the clothes and the sandals that you're wearing, and don't even take a walking stick. A worker should be given what he needs. So there's a lot there. We've been walking through this passage for the last couple of days. Today I'm just going to focus on this thought: relying on God. Learning to rely on God as your source of everything. So what does this mean to you today as we get ready for the weekend? I have 6 things to share with you. So let's get into it. Number 1, you don't have the power to perform the supernatural. Listen, you don't have it. So get over it. You do not have the power to perform the supernatural, but God does. And his power flows through you when you simply get out of the way. How can you perform the supernatural? By getting out of the way. What's the key to performing the supernatural? Dying to self, getting out of the way, yielding to him, allowing God to use you, allowing him to speak through your vocal cords and think through your mind and operate through your limbs. When his power flows through you, you can do things you could never do on your own. So that's why your reliance has to be on God. When you learn to trust him to do things that you can never do on your own, then your reliance is on him. Your trust is in him. Your submission is to him. And then he can use you for his glory. Number 2, Jesus expects you to do what he did. I run into people all the time and say, well, hold on, Rick, I'm not Jesus. I know what you're talking about. You're talking about what Jesus did. But listen, I'm not Jesus. You're right. He was the incarnation of God, but Jesus expects you to be the continuation of his incarnation. Jesus expects you to do what he did. Jesus needs you to do it, expects you to do it, commands you to do it. But in order to do it, then in order to do what Jesus did, you have to live like Jesus lived. How did Jesus live? He lived, watch this, in sync and submission with the Father. He lived in sync and submission with the Father. He was in sync, hearing, receiving, and he was in submission. Whatever he heard, he submitted to it. Whatever he heard, he submitted to it. So you got to be in sync and submission with the Father. And if you do that and you learn to rely on him, listen, your life will be amazing. God will use you to do things that you never imagined that you could do, because it won't be you doing it. At that point, it will be him. Number 3, Jesus' key to success. Watch this. How did Jesus live? How was he successful? Real simple. He only said those things that he heard the Father say. He only did those things that he saw the Father do. He lived his life in submission to the Father. And guess what? You and I can experience that same type of success if we live the same way. If you rely on God with your whole heart, he will give you the words to say, and he will perform the work through you. He will give you the words, he will perform the work. In John 14:10, Jesus said, it's my Father living in me. He gives me the words, he does the work. He will give you the words, and then he will supernaturally perform the work through you for his glory. Don't you want to do that? I mean, isn't that the way that you really want to live? I mean, it's an amazing life, and you can have it just by submitting to him, relying on him. Number 4, Jesus sent common men out to heal the sick, raise the dead, and reach the lost. He did not do this based upon the men or their abilities. When Jesus sent out the dirty dozen, he wasn't looking at them. He wasn't focused on them. He was focused on the Father. Jesus sent the men out based on the Father and his willingness to use unqualified and seemingly unprepared people. And God does this by his unearned and amazing grace. God does not use you because of your qualifications or lack of qualifications. God uses you because of his grace. He uses you because he wants to use you. So open your heart to be used of God. Rely on God, not your strength, not your weaknesses, not you at all. Rely on the Father. And then, and only then, when you're relying on him, can he use you, because you're not in the way. He will use you when you put your trust in him, when your reliance is on him, when your dependence is on him. He will use you by his grace for his glory. Number 5, Jesus released the supernatural power to perform beyond natural abilities to his men by grace. Listen, he said, I'm giving you this power. Heal the sick, raise the dead, heal lepers. He said, what you saw me do, I'm giving it to you. And watch this. He says, I'm giving it to you freely. I'm giving you the power, not because you earned it, not because you deserved it, not because you did everything right. Matthew had just joined the team. He was a tax collector. He was stealing money. He said, no, not because of you at all. I'm giving it to you freely. I'm giving it to you by grace. God freely gives you his unearned grace. And what do we do with it? Our job is to simply embrace it. Once we embrace it, we can then be empowered by it. And then his grace will empower us to do things that we can never do on our own. Grace comes to us freely. It's a gift. You can't earn it. Listen, God is giving you his grace. He loves you. He wants to bless you. You can't earn it. You don't, maybe even not, you don't deserve it. All you can do with a gift is receive it. Receive the grace of God. Embrace the grace of God. Rely on God, and do that today. Number 6, and finally, when Jesus sent his men out, he wanted them to totally rely on the Father, just like he had been relying on the Father all his life. He sent them out to do things. How do I know that he wanted them to rely on the Father? Because he sent them out to do things that they couldn't do. He sent them out to do things that they could not do on their own. And guess what? God does the same thing with us today. He expects us to do things that we could never do on our own. He sends us out. He gives us a dream that's bigger than our checkbook. He gives us a vision that's bigger than our bank account. He gives us an assignment that's bigger than our background, our education, our last name, our connections. He gives us stuff that forces us to rely on him. And then I love it. Watch this. Jesus forbid them from taking any money. He said, you can't even take your money. They had a treasure. They had money. He said, nope, you can't even take no money. All I want you just take the clothes on your back, the sandals on your feet. That's all you can take. Why? Because that forced them to rely on God. That forced them to rely on God as their source. Basically, Jesus was saying, listen, the Father is your source. He will empower you to do what you can never do on your own. And he will provide for you. Wherever he leads, he feeds. Wherever he guides, he provides. You got to trust God to be your source. You got to trust God to be the source of the supernatural and the source of natural things. When you rely on God and his grace, you can do things that I'm telling you, you will live an amazing life. So I'm going to stop here for today. On Monday, I'm going to focus in on that money factor, on how he forbid them from taking any money. We're going to talk more about that on Monday. So I hope you have a great weekend. But before we close out this message, we got to speak something over our own lives. So let's declare this over our lives. Declare this in faith. Repeat after me from a believing heart. Say, Father, I thank you for teaching me about your grace and also my requirement to live by faith. The more I learn about your grace, the more excited I am to live by faith. I am now convinced that you love me with an everlasting love. I know you want to use me because you are good and not necessarily because I am. Putting the emphasis on you, your ability, your power, your strength, and your goodness has freed me from the pressures of human performance. I now simply embrace your grace, and I open my heart to do things that I could never do on my own. As you lead me, I go. As you speak to me, I say. As you send me, I rely on you as both the source of supernatural power and also my source for natural things. The more I rely on you, the more my life becomes all about you. and your plans for me. So I enter this day and every day as a child of the Most High God, redeemed by grace, empowered by love, and propelled by purpose. You are my source. I rely on you. And living this way, I am convinced that I will live an amazing life. Not because I'm so good, but because you're so good, because of your grace. I declare this by faith in Jesus' name. Amen. This is today's word. Apply it and prosper. If you're not getting these messages, go to www.todaysword.org. Look on the right-hand side, scroll down, click there, sign up. You'll get the messages, and there will be a blessing to you. If these messages are a blessing to you, share them with your friends. And before I send you off into the weekend, let me just tell you that we have today's word. You can get it via podcast. Go to our website. You can check it out. Sign up for the podcast, download it or whatever. You can listen to it. It's audio, it's video. For those of you that don't speak English or don't speak English all that well, or you have Spanish-speaking friends, go to palabradeldia.org, and then you can share that with them, and they can sign up to get today's word in Spanish. So as you head into this weekend, the 4th of July weekend, and I hope you have a great time, from our family to yours, we bless you. We ask you to submit and rely on God. And our prayer for you is that you get a break this weekend, that you get some rest, because rest is spiritual. So as you're resting and enjoying and having fun this weekend, rely on God, and you will live an amazing life. God bless you.